Welcome back everyone to this series on the blended value canvas. This is the third part of a 9-part series where we explain how the blended value canvas can be used by entrepreneurs, business leaders, and NGO heads to find a better balance between their commercial, social, and environmental goals. The blended value canvas is a tool that helps to create harmony and complementarity between these three goals, rather than conflict. Essentially, it pushes entrepreneurs and business leaders to ask themselves the question, how can we find a better balance and more sustainability within the activities in our business case? In the first part of the series, I explained the blended value canvas and where it came from, how it was born. In part 2 to part 8, I will go through each of the 7 segments in the canvas. And finally, in part 9, I will provide some closing tips and tricks on how to use the canvas most effectively. In this part of the series, part 3, we will focus on the second segment of the blended value canvas, which is the self-aware culturalist. As an entrepreneur or business leader, have you thought about the internal drivers and passions that enforce the way that you conduct business? How does your personal motivation affect the way that you conduct business? And also, how does it affect your organization's culture, and the way that you interact with the external world, your stakeholders, and the ecosystem around your business case? To simplify it, where does your motivation come from, and how does your motivation affect the way that you conduct business? This is the fundamental question that we will look at in segment 2 of the blended value canvas, the self-aware culturalist. Let's get into it. As an entrepreneur or business leader of a startup, business, or organization, you have certain inner drivers and passions that guide the way that you work. And this personal passion and driver will affect the way that you conduct yourself within your environment and within your organizational culture. Now, if we apply the same logic to the idea of sustainable entrepreneurship, it wouldn't be far-fetched to suggest that an entrepreneur or business leader that wants to inject sustainability into its business activities needs to themselves be invested in sustainable practices and have a passion for sustainability, right? Well, this is exactly what the literature confirms. Sustainable entrepreneurs that have really embedded sustainability and are passionate about different sustainability goals are more likely to exude that and to have a spillover effect onto their organization and onto the business activities within their industry or market. And as a result, they're better capable of creating harmony and complementarity across the 3 values that they're trying to satisfy: the commercial, the social, and the environmental. Now, it's this purpose and motivation and the ability of the entrepreneur to allow that to inject itself and spill over onto the business activities of its business case that really make up the bulk of segment 2, the self-aware culturalist. You see, when studying the existing literature regarding the triple bottom line and blended value creation, it quickly became apparent that those entrepreneurs that were able to develop a vision and have a personal connection with sustainable goals were more likely to achieve them. Now, in order to understand this a little bit better, we can look at how this personal goal manifests itself at 3 levels: the level of the entrepreneur, the level of the organization, and finally, the level of external stakeholders and the ecosystem around the business case. So firstly, let's start with the entrepreneurs themselves. At this level, the internal drivers of the entrepreneur or of the entrepreneurial team play a vital role in ensuring that the foundations of the business case or of their business case is socially and environmentally conscious, as well as commercially healthy. This highlights the first word in segment 2, being self-aware. The more self-aware an entrepreneur is of their own personal intentions and passions, the more they're able to consciously develop a mindset that works towards sustainability. Miller and colleagues, for example, talk strongly about the need for social value orientation within entrepreneurs that want to actually achieve a higher level of social impact within their business activities. Stevens and colleagues found something similar in their research, which looks at how social business cases can develop a socially conscious mission within their business units. What they found was that the ability for a business to develop a socially conscious mission is dependent on the level of other regarding and self-regarding values of the entrepreneur. Instead of conducting a rational cost-benefit analysis, which is unlikely to yield sufficient motivation to create a sustainable or socially conscious business model. In other words, rationale and practical knowledge of sustainability is only going to get you so far. Having sustainability as an internal driver and mission within yourself and the organization might get you much further. What's also interesting is that the research seems to suggest that entrepreneurs that are able to embed this mission orientation within themselves may be better suited to create harmony and complementarity between their commercial, social, and environmental logics. Smith and colleagues, for example, highlight that those entrepreneurs that are able to develop an exceptional commitment to and passion for the social mission and possess an ethic of care to sustain the focus of social welfare may be better suited to accommodate divergent logics. So basically what they're saying is that those entrepreneurs that think about and that actually value social impact and environmental impact, but also commercial health, are more likely to find a good harmony and a good balance between them. Whereas those that don't think about these issues and are not passionate about these issues are less likely to do so, and perhaps more likely to create conflict between their social impact, environmental impact, and commercial health goals. Now, this is where it gets interesting, because the research also suggests that those entrepreneurs that are able to embed that kind of passion within themselves, that they'll be able to spill this over onto their organization. Thorgren and Omared highlight this in their research, where they say that entrepreneurs that have this internal motivation will be able to spread that passion onto their organizations. Hence, it may be deduced that a sustainable entrepreneur who is fixated and who values sustainability will be able to nurture that within their own organization. Let's have a look at the organizational level. In order for a business model to become more sustainable, it needs to develop a sustainability identity. This is highlighted by Pash and Santos, who suggest that entrepreneurs that are able to build an organizational identity or a strong organizational identity around social impact or sustainability will be able to mobilize different response strategies to cope with internal conflict. On the flip side, an entrepreneur that isn't able to embed a sustainable mindset or identity within its organization and therefore its business activities is more likely to incur mission drift. Mission drift can be defined as a process of organizational change where an organization diverges from its main purpose or mission. It has often been used with respect to organizations that have a social mission and that diverge from their original mission. In the case of a sustainable business case, mission drift would occur if business activities lean too much towards either the commercial value, the social value, or the environmental value, and hence forget one of the others. For example, it might emphasize the financial health of the company over its environmental impact. It might not focus on how it reduces waste within its packaging or within its supply chain because it realizes that it could squeeze more profits out of its business activities. Or it could focus way too much attention on its social impact and forget that it has to have a healthy commercial bottom line and make money in order to sustain its ability to have a social impact. Moss and colleagues continue this line of thought and suggest that companies that want to avoid mission drift really need to have a strong identity around the different goals that they're trying to achieve, especially when they have goals like the commercial, social, and environmental that can sometimes conflict with each other if not managed properly. So what we can gather out of this is that in a sustainable business case, it's important that the entrepreneur develops an organizational identity that really nurtures value towards commercial health, environmental health, and social health. So then the question is, how would you actually develop an identity like this and maintain it within a business case? This is where the second part of segment 2 comes into play. the self-aware culturalist. You see, we've established that sustainable business models are able to thrive if they're able to create a culture that is built on motivation. Hence, there's a strong and clear focus on the ability of the business case to create culture, a culture that enhances and promotes sustainability. Now, strategies that help organizations build such an intrinsic culture come in many shapes and sizes. For example, some researchers suggest that sustainable businesses should have clear and distinct groups of individuals that are responsible separately for the commercial, social, and environmental goals of that business case. By doing so, the business will be able to mitigate the tendency to overemphasize one goal over the other, and hence mitigate the chances of mission drift. Newey and Lee highlight the importance of employing and nurturing innovative approaches to both social impact and the generation of earned income, thus showing a strong connection between the self-aware culturalist and segment 1, rebellious innovation. In other words, the ability for a business case to develop a sustainability identity lies in its ability to be innovative and to embrace innovation in its culture. Current examples of this would be companies that are actively experimenting with circular practices within their business case. Adidas, for example, is experimenting with circular practices in its Future Craft line.
The idea of future craft is to put something out there that has never been done. It's an approach, it's the process, it's the questions that we ask ourselves. Can you make a performance shoe out of recycled gill nets or out of ocean plastic? Can we actually make a running shoe out of 3D printed material that really works and works well? How do you recycle a piece of footwear when it's made up of so many different materials? And just when you think you've done something really cool, you realize there's so much more that can be done. Now, can we solve the problem of plastic waste? I mean, can you create something in the world that does less harm? We want to shape the future of sport. We want to embrace technology. We want to bring what's next. Describing future craft as a journey is a more honest description of what innovation is. If we can push ourselves and our industry forward, solve some of the bigger problems of the world, that's got to be the ultimate goal.
In this product line, Adidas is experimenting with how it could possibly make shoes using waste material on the one end of the supply chain. And on the other end of the supply chain, it's experimenting with how it can get shoes back from consumers and reuse that material to make new shoes. Another example would be Philips, which has its Philips refurbished systems. This is a project that allows hospitals to actually sell their old equipment back to Philips at a discount. This project allows hospitals to upgrade their machinery and equipment like MRI scans or CT scans. By trading in their old equipment, Philips then uses this old equipment and refurbishes it and sells it on. And these are good examples of how companies are trying to adopt innovative business activities that will strengthen their sustainability identity. Another way that businesses can strengthen their sustainability identity is by being extremely transparent and accounting for more than just their commercial practices. What this entails is that businesses actually measure the social and environmental performance of their actions just as they do the commercial, and that they share this transparently with external stakeholders that also hold them accountable. In this sense, this is very closely connected to segment 7 of the blended value canvas, transparent accounting. It might also be interesting to look at the work by Frederic Laloux about reinventing organizations. In this book of his, he actually suggests that there's different types of organizations, the final or the highest one being the teal organization. Now, the cases that he mentions in the teal organizations are actually cases that perform quite well when it comes to sustainability. Frederick highlights that these organizations really focus on creating a higher purpose in their organization, focus on evolutionary purpose, self-management, wholeness, and anti-fragileness of the organization, and distributed decision-making. So this again might be a really interesting model to have a look at for entrepreneurs or leaders that are trying to develop a more sustainable identity. And after we've looked at the organizational layer, we're going to move on to the final layer. Final layer where a sustainable entrepreneur or business leader must inject sustainability or a sustainable identity is the external environment. I like to call this the ecosystem. Essentially, the ecosystem where the business finds itself and where it has to engage with a range of stakeholders and deal with a range of environmental conditions while still trying to achieve its business activities successfully. Now, the existing body of research clearly suggests some benefits to showing your sustainability identity towards the external environment, and that this will enhance your ability to create harmony and complementarity between the three value logics: social, commercial, and environmental. A study by Thorgren and Omered in 2015 suggests that social entrepreneurs or sustainable entrepreneurs who are able to convey the passion and motivation behind the intention of their business case will be able to, 1, mobilize more resources from the stakeholders in their environment, 2, generate more commitment from stakeholders in their environment, and 3, may be perceived as more attractive by buyers, suppliers, and consumers. Studies such as this show a clear correlation between a business's ability to share its sustainability identity and its ability to successfully engage and accrue resources from its environment. Now, really think about this for a minute. The existing literature is basically pointing out that an entrepreneur that's able to exude its sustainability identity will actually be able to create a more successful business case in terms of commercial health, social impact, and environmental impact. Now, that's pretty amazing if you think about it. Let's look at a couple examples of how this might manifest itself, because it's important to understand that this identity doesn't only help you to create commercial value, to gain commercial resources, it also helps you to create more environmental and social impact. Firstly, and perhaps an obvious one, is that organizations that exude and share a certain sustainability identity will create more awareness for the complex challenges that they're trying to solve. By doing so, they'll create more believers and other businesses that might do the same, thus indirectly increasing their potential or the potential of the industry to have a social or environmental impact. Secondly, the research suggests that a sustainability identity will actually help with the commercial health of a business because it will attract more customers, better suppliers, and better buyers. This clearly shows that the social or environmental impact value orientation that a business has and is able to share with its external stakeholders, that has a positive effect on its commercial well-being. This is a clear-cut case of creating harmony and complementarity between the social, environmental, and commercial goals that you're trying to attain as a sustainable company. This does demand something, though, from sustainable entrepreneurs. It means that they're going to have to find ways to share their sustainability identity with their external environment. This means that part of their strategy will have to focus on media engagement, communication efforts towards other stakeholders, and perhaps awareness campaigns about the social, environmental, and commercial activities that they're engaged in. Such media exposure may also lead to further collaboration and further legitimacy of the business case. It's important, of course, that businesses don't use this as a greenwashing tool to accrue more commercial resources to their business case by profiling themselves as being socially or environmentally impactful. This would be a pretty toxic form of mission drift. Another unique benefit of profiling your sustainability identity is that as you do so, external stakeholders will start to hold you more accountable for your actions. And this is not a bad thing. You'll have to prove yourself, become more transparent, and perhaps start measuring some of the social, environmental, and commercial activities that you're engaged with. As a result, you yourself will move towards more sustainable business practices to show your external stakeholders that you're doing a good job. This is often also the point where we see entrepreneurs engage more in impact measurement, whether it's social or environmental. So, to summarize, we can say 3 things concretely. Firstly, a sustainable entrepreneur must nurture and understand their passion and identity to achieve sustainable goals. This passion can then be transferred onto the organizational culture to enhance the organization's ability to engage in sustainable business activities. And third, this individual and organizational passion should trickle over onto the environment of the business case and help them to optimally gain resources and to gain more legitimacy and sustainability within their environment. So now that we've gone through all that information about the sustainable identity of a business case, it's your turn. Look at the business case or startup that you're working on and ask yourself some of these following questions. Firstly, start at the vision level and try to understand how embedded its sustainability vision really is and how it executes that on an operational and strategic level. Try to find out what the key motivators and drivers are for the current leadership team. How do the leaders of the business case feel about sustainability? Or perhaps break that down further. What is their outlook on the commercial, social, and environmental impact of their business activities? And can you spot some gaps for improvement or for change in that identity? And then try to figure out what kind of practical activities, tools, or tips would help those leaders to develop a more sustainable identity. Next, look at the organizational level. Does the organization have a sustainable identity? Does it focus on innovation in sustainability? What are the measures and practices taken within the organization and its culture to embody sustainability more in its business activities? You might also want to look a little bit more at the operational level. How does the business, for example, measure its activities? Does it measure its social activities and its environmental activities, or just its commercial well-being? Is there room to change internal structures to create departments that are related to different aspects of sustainability? And is there an organizational culture that strives for sustainability? And if not, what could be done to change that? And finally, look at the relationship between the business and its external environment. How is it perceived by others? Who does it collaborate with? Has it formed certain partnerships with key players that might help it to create a more sustainable agenda for its business activities? Does it need to change anything about its messaging or its marketing? Does it share certain impact measurement forms with its external stakeholders to show what kind of work it's doing? In other words, how is it sharing its social, environmental, and commercial impact? And could there be improvements in how it shares that? And as you look for answers to some of these questions, you will find new ways of improving the sustainable identity of your business case. Remember that the purpose of this canvas is not to give you answers, but to raise questions that will push you to find new answers for your particular business case. When completing the segment on self-aware culturalist, remember as well that the different segments in the blended value canvas are interrelated. This means that what you find out for the self-aware culturalist segment might affect another one of the segments. During this video, we've already discussed some examples of how this might happen. For example, we discussed how innovation is crucial for developing a sustainable identity. Hence, there's some correlation between Theme 2, Self-Aware Culturalist, and Theme 1, Rebellious Innovation. Secondly, we also discussed how developing a sustainable identity also needs to spill over onto your ecosystem and the relationships with your stakeholders. In this sense, it's very closely tied to Theme 4, Collaborative Bricolage, where you will look at how different stakeholders can be used to attain resources for your business case and to create more harmony and complementarity between the different value logics. Another example would be in Theme 5, Humble Scaling, where you might only want to grow so far within a certain value logic. So you might only want to grow commercially so far, or socially so far, or environmentally so far. And being more self-aware will help that. Another example would be Theme 7, Transparent Accounting. As we mentioned, it can be useful to measure your actions and be transparent in that measurement so as to create a sustainable identity both internally in your organization and externally towards stakeholders. So as you complete the second segment of the canvas, remember that this might affect other parts of the canvas and jot down notes wherever this is applicable. So that was the second segment of the blended value canvas. While the concept of identity can feel abstract, I hope that I have, in a small way, helped you understand how you can break down a business's identity into 3 different layers. I hope that as you explore this area, you'll come to see how crucial organizational identity is in embracing and pushing forward a sustainable agenda within its business activities. If you have any questions or would like some more tips on how you can go deeper into segment 2, feel free to get in touch with me. And that's it for this video. I look forward to welcoming you in the next video, where we'll look at the 3rd segment, which is cyclical education.